Hey, what's going on, friends and friendettes and all that shit? Remember how we talked about this in the last video? Well, why don't we talk about something kind of the same? Something that I've been wondering at. I have been reading here by Charles Squires, Celtic Myth und Legend. And it's basically like, what one could say, like synopsis of all known Celtic mythology, from like what they discovered in the Duncow writings and all this other shit. And it focuses a lot around, so far as I sees, just double checking. Yeah, never mind. So it does go into Welsh. I was thinking it was just Irish, but no, actually it's about to get Welsh here in a minute. Starts at the beginning of the creation of the gods and all that, and moves its way through the stories. And it's been kind of fascinating to see, you know, from the Tuatha Dé Danann, through the Milesians, all the way into the Ulster cycle. I haven't got to the whole Finn McCool shit quite at that point yet. But it is interesting to see it all kind of laid in a line from the beginning to the end. And it's very, very fascinating. One thing that I really like, as I've been kind of discovering my own heritage, is the Welsh side. That's just something I never knew about. It wasn't talked about. The Welsh, but I should have said Irish, but also Welsh too. Mostly Irish in this conversation for a minute. For me, the Irish in my family was my mother's father, but he fucked off and I never got to meet the man. He left before she was born in the 70s and subsequently formed a few more families. He was that guy that kept just making a family and leaving them, making a family and leaving them, making a family and leaving them, and he just had a wake of it. And eventually he died, so I never got to meet the Irish side of my family, sadly. But isn't it weird that I'm more connected to that than I am the others, the normal side of my family? It's kind of, it's so weird, but anyway. So I never really got to experience that. I don't know what it is to be Irish. I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. So I do my best that I can. And saying that, I've been doing a lot of reading. I got a book called The Heroic Age. I don't know if that was by John Koch or not, I don't remember. And I got a lot of subsequent, like, any kind of stories that I could get my hands on when it comes to just Irish stories, Celtic stories. And just digesting them, and they've been very, very, very interesting. It's like a fresh look at mythology that I never really realized. All I've ever known was Greek, right? Not very well, but enough. You know, I knew about Theseus and the Minotaur. Well, that's really the only one I can remember being told specifically in school. So that's the only one that I learned growing up. But maybe there were others, I don't recall. And there was always a fascination to it, but a lingering fascination. Like, man, that's so cool. Like when we were being read, I don't remember how they were reading it, but when we were being read the story of Theseus and the Minotaur, I remember being enthralled by it. But I never took it anymore. I didn't realize I could. Story of my life. Now, there's always going to be that Greek mythology that I've loved. But as I've been working more and more in Irish mythology, it's got a very different flavor to it. At times there's a bit more of a romance feel to it. At other times it's got more of a... It's kind of messy in a sense. It's not as richly preserved as the Greek mythology, so it's very short, and you know, I always want to go farther. Like when they go into another realm, it's just like, it's so quick. I'm like, I want to explore that more. But like a lot of these stories are just, they feel like they've been cut short, as if they were hastily transcribed. That's the only negative side with these Irish stories. Like there feels like there could have been this wealth of rich information into it, but it was copied, and most likely the early Middle Ages, very hastily, and so it's only the facts. Just like, and then Cuchulainn or Cuchulainn, or I forgot how I've heard it pronounced another way. I've heard people pronounce it a bunch of different ways. I call it Cuchulainn, but as Cuchulainn, you know, he he went through this battle rage, and then they had to put him in one vat, and then they had to put him in another vat, and then they had to put him in a third one. Like, it just feels really rushed, you know. Or Conqueror was, you know, he wanted this woman back, and because she was promised to be the most beautiful woman in the whole world, and he sent some men there, and, you know, he tested each man, and each man, like, he's like, okay, you're the one that I'll send to get her. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. It just feels really quick. It doesn't feel like it dwells enough on it. And in my mind, I just think, well, that must have been because like Christians were coming around and burning shit, and they're like, oh fuck yeah, just write it down as quick as we can. Make sure we don't mention them as gods. Just say that they're like heroes or something. I don't know. It feels that way. It really, really does. And I do wonder how that's affected the way we understand the mythology now. Because the Tuatha Dé Danann, the goddess Danu, who these followers were most likely divine beings themselves. I don't know about deities specifically, but they were god-like, right? They were defeated by the Malaysians. I think those were what they consider the modern Gaels, the Gaelic people, like what they descended from. But that story echoes something that's very rare, and that is gods, we could say, being defeated by mortals. You don't really hear about that very often. Now, part of me wonders, like, is that the true intent of what this mythology is trying to say? Or is this merely an effect of the Christians? You know, the Irish Christians, where you know, don't talk, only Jesus Christ and God, and everything else is fucked. You know, I don't know. I'm not like a scholar. They probably have done this stuff, and I haven't found it yet. But in my mind, Naked Over Here, it just feels like, I don't know, is that the intent, or is that a side effect of the Christian world? The more I dwell on stuff, the more I really wonder at our modern religion. Because I think people are really closed-minded about it. There's just Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and you gotta fucking accept Him. And there is nothing else. You're just full of bullshit if there's anything else. And then that's it. And I just think that's just so small-minded in my mind. What God is small-minded? I don't think so. And then I started thinking, why are Middle Eastern stories that came from the Middle East, so Jesus and the fucking Hebrews and, you know, Moses and all that shit, those are stories for those people. Why is that the world's story now? Why do we all believe in this Middle Eastern guy? Unless you believe the stories that he was actually like an Aryan, you know, like a blue-eyed Aryan guy, as some accounts say. Unless you believe other stories who say, no, he was black, you know, like, it's just like, it's so annoying. Like, that's what we do. We want to make him ours, right? The story is that he went to the Buddhists and he went over to the Druids and shit, like, you know, the conspiracy shit. I don't know. It's hard to know what to believe. But at the end of the day, to simplify it the most, it's Middle Eastern stories for people in the sands, man. And that's not us. And I was thinking about it. I was talking to my wife about it. And I was like, maybe it doesn't, because me and her, we both feel the same way. This doesn't make sense to us. As much as I've always been exposed to the Bible and all these stories, I'm like, yeah, that's great. But there's something about them that just I don't feel. You know what I mean? You feel it trying to pull at you, and you know that's how thought forms work. But there's something about it that doesn't set right with me. And it's unnameable. I can't, like, describe it. I can try my best, but at the end of the day, I can't put my finger on it. But the minute I get my hands on something that comes from what I could say is my heritage, you know, like what descends from it. So you got, like, you know, Grimm fairy tales, and you got Celtic stories and stuff, and you know, I forgot what they call that, but like the stories of the Scandinavian people, you know, with Aesir and all that shit. Why does that feel right? Why does that feel better? You know, we could say it's a cultural thing. It could be your mind telling you it's better. You could be fighting it. You could, you know, there's a whole bunch of different fucking reasons to say why one thing hits better than another. A lot of times we can trick ourselves into thinking we like something, even though we don't know if we really do or not. I don't know. It's so vast, the amount of like examples to say, well, why is this and why is that? But every time I think about the Bible, I really think about those are stories for people of the sands. You know, people that live amongst that arid land. And it makes sense to them because God comes out of all of everything because they live in a land that's fucking, it's not dead, but it's a very inhospitable-ish kind of place. And it makes sense the way that they would see a God coming out and being the most highest of power. Why would it make sense for like Celtic people to say, you know, like it's around you, it's amongst you, because the land is bountiful and beautiful and it yields crops and shit. Like, I think we forget about that. Maybe buried deep down inside of each mythology or each religious belief system is the element of truth. I believe that. I believe they're all speaking of a great truth, but the way they define it isn't necessarily the truth. It's just some sort of viewpoint of what they consider truth. And as I think more and more about Celtic mythology, for instance, there's a lot more, it's not great, I'm going to caveat this, it's not great, it's not perfect, but there's a lot more respect paid towards women, in a sense. You know, like the chief fucking deities are the goddess Danu. They follow her, you know, like they're her children, I guess. I don't know how you wanted to say it. Not really prophets or anything. Erin, the land of Ireland, is a female. Like, there's a lot more feminine eccentric things amongst it. You know, Cuchulainn is trying to gain the favor of this beautiful woman, but it is her choice. And she says what he has to do in order to win her favor, because she says, I'm not only the most beautiful, but the most, whole high chastity. I forgot how they worded it. It was really weird. And I've lived my life this way, and I'm very devout to it. And it was her choice, not like, and he took her, like you would read in other stories. And so I find more of an attraction towards that stuff, because it resonates more with me. My whole life I lived amongst women, right? My dad was always gone at work, so I was home with my mom and my sister. Growing up, my sister had a bunch of friends, and sometimes I'd hang with them. Sometimes. When I wasn't hanging out with my own. As I grow older and start falling in love with women, you know, I would like to take care of women. I like to help them, be around, whatever it is. Simple to say, I enjoy the company of women. I always have, and I still do to this day. I've been around women way more than I have men. I just find a comfort in that. I like it. And so when I read stories that treat them better, in a sense, I could say, not generally, because there are some parts, you know, just like anything. But when it feels more rich like that, I enjoy the hell out of it. It's a good read for me. You know, I can't wrap my head around, you know, Muslim women now in the Middle East being covered head to toe. I just can't like wrap my head around that. I know it's to suppress male urges, but in my mind, well, that sounds like, as the kids would say, that's a you problem, right? It sounds like you need to control yourself. It's not this chick's fault of, you know, how good she looks, or however you define good looks. Because all day, like where I work, for instance, when it's hot, I see ass cheeks all day, you know? And some of them aren't exactly up to the age. Some of them are not wearing bras and no underwear, and they're walking around in their skimpiest outfits in a grocery store. And some of them are like under 17 years old. It is fucking insane, like what mothers and fathers are like. They're standing next to them. Whatever. But I'm presented with what you could say temptation all the time. And I haven't done anything one time. I don't even talk to them because I don't need to. It's not about covering them up. I mean, there's a good thing to say about modesty. But it's me. I'm in control of my body, not this woman. You could come up to me and be the most attractive woman in the world. Try to seduce me, apparently. I'm still the one in control. You know? I think that is the story to be set. with mythology that kind of echoes that, it makes more sense to me. It really does. I'm not what one could consider a feminist by any means. You know, because I think like the modern feminist movement does have a lot of flaws and stuff, and they're very mean and judgmental and everything. But I find myself being on the side of women a lot more because it's innate. I feel like it's my duty in a sense to kind of help. And just my experience of those Middle Eastern stories, I don't feel that. I just don't feel it in those. I don't understand the Middle Eastern culture, or those Arabs, you know, or I don't even know where like those stories take place. Modern day Afghanistan, I don't fucking know. Israel, that shit just doesn't jive with me. It's all so foreign. It's a bunch of random ass people that are a different skin color than me, and I'm not supposed to believe their stories. It just never felt right. And so when I try to discover my own roots, I'm like, now that feels right, because it's written, not necessarily Charles Squire, but like the stories were created by people that reflected me more. People that hail from a land that my ancestors come from, so their stories make more fucking sense to me and what they're trying to describe. And I think we forget about that. I think we all want to have this one thing. Let's have one religion, let's have one race, let's have one world, one government. Like, it's fucking stupid. It's never going to work that way. And I think that's the problem. And I don't know why Christianity fell the way it did. I don't know why. I know that it was force-fed on people. I know that, you know, you go to a new land and you force your God onto them. I know we've always kind of done that as a human race, far back as we've been able to walk. So I know that's probably what it is. It's built in us because there's a sense of, inside of that thing, a sense of control. But not only that, but a sense of community and a sense of culture that you can find if you have this one religion that is, hey man, this is it, so we can kind of know how to control it, right? To put it very simply. Not malevolently or benevolently, not like in an evil way, but just in a way of like controlling a culture, controlling a group of people. A philosophy head, an idea concept that we can all gather onto. Like, I understand that's the point of it. And people will get lost in the sauce, as they say, and they'll definitely start to think like it's truth, absolute. Like, I don't hold anything against anyone that says Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior, because he was a teacher. He was teaching a way, and that's just how humans are. Like, if a new guy comes along and has a new teaching, about 1,000 years later, he's going to be considered a god. That's just how people are, you know, like, because that truth is so tantalizing and so mystical and so vague that it's easy to attack. The vaguer you are, the more followers you'll have, because you're allowing them to put their own shit inside your box that you set up. So like, I get it all. You know, like we even talk about like the Jews and shit and their Kabbalah, and how they're saying like, yeah, you know, base level religion is just for those people, but there's higher tiers for certain groups of people. And the Kabbalah is for this higher tier of people that see through these stories and see through all this, that, so they can form a connection to God through the tree of life. I don't remember what they call that tree, but you know what I'm talking about. And so I can kind of grasp what religion's purpose is. It's different for whatever person is reading it. The lowly person will take it at face value. The higher person will take it at its metaphorical influence and its allegories. And there's another tier of people that look at it for its secret hidden knowledge that's inside of it, that's wrapped around those very words that were written down. Like, it's for different groups of people. That's why it's enthralling. That's why it's stayed alive. If you want to make a new religion, you have to work on it. Now, saying all that, my thing has always been, but I'm not trying to play. I always put it that simply. I'm not trying to fuck around here. I'm not trying to play and like get invested in people's shit. All I'm trying to do is know my ancestors. And if I can find stories that they remotely knew of, just remotely, Whether that's the Welsh, whether that's the Irish, Scottish, I haven't quite got there yet. Or we could just kind of like say Anglo-Saxon, just like a group term. Those ones, because my last name is Baker, clearly. Where did I come from, man? So if I can understand their stories, I can understand what they thought and how they felt about their world. And you work in conjunction with their histories, you can define these people. The reason I see religion the way I do now is because I learned about the medieval era in England, in Europe in general, and what Christianity did to people. And the 1600s when they came out of it. So that's why I have this tinge about it. I'm like, man, it's really fucked them up. It really fucked him up. Like it kind of threw a wrench in what those people would have became. But if I could seek these people, I will do my best to. So, for instance, I just not that long ago I read a book about Taliesin. You know, the bard from Welsh tradition, the most famous of all bards. And as I was reading it, I felt something, because I have Welsh in my DNA. And now that I'm reading the Irish mythology, I feel something, because it's in my DNA. Anytime I learn about Germanic stories, because that's, you know, the English people are Germanic, right? They're Anglo-Saxon, and Saxons were a Germanic tribe. I think the Angles were too. The Jutes were from Denmark, modern-day Denmark, I don't remember. Doesn't matter. But also the Scandinavian in me too. That like there's something inside of those stories that can help me understand my people better, and that's what I'm trying to do. It's not people worship or ancestor worship as much as someone would define it that way. It's just seeking to understand where it is that I came from, because we're losing that. We're sitting in this new land called America, where we're so fucking mixed that that's why we start saying white people and black people. Because we're so mixed that you can't say, well, he's not black, he's actually Nigerian, and this guy's Ethiopian, you know. You can't tell anymore, sitting fucking here. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you right now with Irish, Welsh, Scottish, Danish, English, with those things inside of me, and it's all formed into this guy, and it's like, well, what are you? Like, I don't know, I'm just white, I don't know. It's too much to, like, sit here and tell you. I'm European. And that's the issue. So when we try to understand ourselves and our ancestors, we're sitting in this fucking land that we're so mixed up. We don't even know. We have no fucking idea. I don't know how to define that. Trying to understand my Norwegian ancestry is way different than me trying to understand my Scottish or my English. Those are different people, man. But you set them over in this world, we start mixing them up, and look at, like, I'm here, you're just like, that's just a white guy. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's limiting, and because of that, we're losing sense of self. That's why we fight each other. That's why we're having this black and white thing going on. As much as you want to believe it or don't believe it, it's just a stupid thing we're doing. And it's dumb. And it's like, it's a distraction. And I really think in my life, I want to go back to the people that made me, the people that brought me to this world. And if I can understand their stories, maybe I can understand them. Because what really set this idea, honestly, it was that one sentence I was reading actually in this book that says it's one of those rare stories where the mortals destroyed their gods, or the gods. I don't know if it was their gods, like the Tuatha De Danann were destroyed, if you want to say that, went to hiding from the Milesians. And I just think that's so unique. And it just set me on this path of like, well, that's my people. What were they saying? What were these stories meant to say? What were they meant to do? Who were they meant for? And that's all I've been trying to do. You know, I sit here in the Midwest of the United States, where culture is just, I hate it all around me. I can't identify with American culture. I just don't get it. And it just makes me feel lonely. But the minute I start to like take notice of where my people came from, I was like, this is good. It makes me feel like life's worth living. Because sitting in America in the modern era, man, all they want to do is shove a fucking phone in your face or an iPad. Just like, look at that, and get distracted by these guys playing video games. Isn't that fun? You know, get distracted by buying more stupid shit. Don't think about that. Buy another thing on Amazon. Make those people work even harder. Like, and when you're done, go get a Tesla. You gotta save the world. That's all I know in this stupid fucking world around me, and it makes no sense. And our technology is getting uglier, and so is our architecture. It's just like getting sleeker and more boring. Let's all be gray. Let's just have it all gray. It'll be awesome. Minimalism. And I'm just like, I see that this is a result of a lack of culture. Real, true culture. We're into materialism. We're into stupid fucking things. You should get a new phone cover. That looks bad. Like, why? You should get a better camera. You should get a better computer. You should get better speakers. Those phone pads are cheap. You should get better phone ones. Like, that's all it is. And I'm just trying to walk away from it to understand my own people. And it all begins with understanding the mythology in which they understood, and which played a role in their lives. Doesn't mean it was good, doesn't mean it was bad. But if at least I try to understand why they used it, maybe that'll bring me closer to who they were as people. And maybe I can try to continue that tradition as much as I possibly can in my own life. But I don't know. We'll see about that. I gotta close this out because I gotta take a shit. So, the next video we're gonna have is gonna be a long one. It's gonna be the Forgotten series of podcasts, and it'll be about the Keepers. So look forward to that one. That one's gonna be hopefully pretty good. We'll see though.